They said Bitcoin would set you free. Free from banks, free from governments, free from the system that keeps printing money, drowning the poor in inflation while the rich swim in liquidity. But freedom, as history teaches, is never free. When you remove the rules, the referees, and the regulators, what you're left with isn't paradise. It's chaos, disguised as opportunity. If you love the real stories behind money and power, hit like and subscribe before we go on. Now let's dive in. To understand Bitcoin, go back to 2008, a year when trust itself collapsed. When Lehman Brothers fell, the world realized the people in charge had no control and no accountability. Central banks printed trillions to rescue the very institutions that caused the disaster, while ordinary citizens lost their homes, jobs, and savings. The financial order wasn't built on stability, it was built on faith. And in the middle of that breakdown, an anonymous user named Satoshi Nakamoto posted a 9-page white paper for a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. The idea was revolutionary and deeply political, a currency without a state, verified by cryptography instead of bankers, capped forever at 21 million coins. No central authority, no inflation, no manipulation. Every transaction recorded on a public ledger, the blockchain that could never be rewritten, a monetary rebellion wrapped in math. In 2009, the first block was mined. Hidden inside, Satoshi left a message referencing a headline about bank bailouts, a middle finger to the system. And mining isn't digging in the ground, it's solving complex puzzles. Every time a computer cracks one, it adds a new block and earns new Bitcoin. Thousands of machines competing and verifying, no government, no bank, just math. Early believers joined libertarians, programmers, economists. One made the first real-world purchase, 2 pizzas for 10,000 BTC. At today's price, over $600 million, the most expensive meal in history. But soon, stateless money collided with human nature. By 2013, Bitcoin had exploded from under $1 to over $1,000. And then, as always, the dream cracked. In 2014, Mt. Gox collapsed after 850,000 Bitcoins vanished. Around $450 million. Gone. No one to call, no regulator, no refunds. The blockchain recorded every stolen coin in public view, but not one could be retrieved. The technology worked perfectly. It was the people who failed. That's the paradox of Bitcoin. It removes the middlemen, but also the mediators. There's no authority to turn to when something goes wrong. Every transaction is final, every mistake permanent. And as crypto exploded, so did the scams, fake wallets, Ponzi tokens, phishing links, rug pulls, most orbiting Bitcoin's brand, but built on shakier ground. In 2022 alone, users lost over $3.8 billion to hacks and scams. Even if you trace the stolen funds, and you can, thanks to the blockchain, recovering them is nearly impossible. The addresses are visible, the owners are not. Cold wallets are safer, but they protect against hacks, not fraud. Once you willingly send coins to a scammer, nothing can save you. That's the trade-off Bitcoin forces: freedom or protection. You can't have both. No chargebacks, no customer service, no oops button. You own your money and every mistake with it. And yet people kept believing, because Bitcoin wasn't just money, it was ideology, a protest against the old order. But freedom without boundaries doesn't stay free for long. In 2021, one country made the dream into law. El Salvador, long dependent on US dollars and remittances, announced Bitcoin would become legal tender. Its president called it a revolution. The world called him reckless. He called it freedom. At first, it looked like a triumph. The government built a national wallet app, handed out $30 in Bitcoin to every citizen, and installed Bitcoin ATMs. But the experiment hit reality. Most Salvadorans didn't want a volatile asset for their groceries. They wanted stability. In 2022, when Bitcoin plunged more than 60%, the government's holdings lost half their value on paper, and the IMF warned it could destabilize the country's finances. By 2025, only about 8% of Salvadorans use Bitcoin regularly. The rest stick to dollars. Under a new IMF agreement, the government quietly made acceptance voluntary rather than mandatory. For everyday citizens, Bitcoin didn't bring freedom, it brought confusion. El Salvador revealed something profound. Bitcoin can't replace the financial system because it isn't a system, it's a technology. It works for those with knowledge and discipline, but as a national currency it exposed the very thing it tried to fix: inequality. The wealthy gained new ways to move money offshore. The poor were told to download an app that barely worked. Meanwhile, a new class of elites was quietly shaping Bitcoin's destiny, not governments, whales. In 2025, roughly 1% of all Bitcoin addresses control over half the total supply. A handful of players can move the price of an asset markets called decentralized. When a whale moves 10,000 BTC around $600 million, it's enough to crash or spike markets worldwide. None are accountable. In traditional finance, insider trading and manipulation are punishable by prison. In Bitcoin, there are no such rules. If a whale dumps coins to trigger panic, then buys back cheaper. It's just strategy. Private groups run pump and dump cycles through encrypted chats. In regulated markets, this would be criminal conspiracy. In crypto, it's Tuesday. That's the contradiction at the heart of Bitcoin. It was built to remove human corruption, but humans built everything around it and learned to bend the rules because there aren't any. It can't be manipulated by governments, but it can be, and is, manipulated by people with enough capital. That's not decentralization. That's a new oligarchy with better technology. By 2025, Bitcoin is both myth and mirror, a myth of digital freedom, and a mirror reflecting every flaw of human greed. Its price has surged again, and the old chorus is back. This time it's different, but history never changes. It only disguises itself. When crypto-friendly politics rolled back digital asset rules, markets exploded. Some projects were legitimate, others were fraud in designer clothing. Because in the absence of regulation, lawlessness always masquerades as liberty. It was created to free money from control, and it succeeded. But what came next wasn't equality. It was absolute responsibility. Every investor their own bank, every mistake permanent, every loss final. The crypto answer is, don't trust, verify. And they're right. If you have the knowledge and discipline, you can protect yourself. But that's not freedom for everyone. That's survival for the few. Freedom without protection doesn't liberate the masses, it isolates them. Bitcoin did something extraordinary. It proved money could exist without a state, that trust could be built on mathematics instead of institutions, the first successful rebellion against financial monopoly. But every rebellion faces the same test. What happens after you win? It removed the gatekeepers, but not power. In place of central banks, we now have central holders. In place of policymakers, influencers, it's still hierarchy, just rebranded as decentralization. Because even in a stateless world, power doesn't disappear. It just finds a new address. Bitcoin created money beyond the state, but in doing so, it revealed a deeper truth. When you remove the regulators, the powerful don't vanish, they just change wallets. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. If this gave you a new perspective on how money and power really work, hit like and subscribe because history always has the answers. You just have to know where to look.